Welcome to the Lowcountry Revolutionaries, the podcast that dives deep into the heart of Charleston, South Carolina's vibrant entrepreneurial scene. I'm your host, Bill Bellot, founder of Veritas Exercise, and each week we're spotlighting the boldest innovators from the Chucktown startup community. These are the visionaries pouring their heart and soul into the businesses that are transferring Charleston into a global hub of creativity and American ingenuity. Get ready for raw, real conversations with the trailblazers shaping our city's future. Let's dive in. I'd like to welcome Casey Albrecht. Casey, after spending about 8 years in accounting, decided to move to Charleston in 2020, where she founded Custom Vows by Casey. She's a wedding officiant whose goal is to create a ceremony that reflects the couple's relationships and the experience they want to create on their wedding day. She has performed about 1,000 wedding ceremonies. Wow. Everything from elopements, vow renewals, micro weddings, and larger weddings. Each one is unique and different. Welcome, Casey. How you doing?
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it. I'm excited to chat with you.
Yeah, so we were talking a little bit before this, and I was asking her then, but I'm going to ask you again. Tell me what the heck is a wedding officiant? Is it a minister? Is it something else? How does that kind of even work?
Well, first I tell people it's the best job in the world. I get to marry people for a living. So
Nice.
pretty much I'm the person that stands up with the couple, during their vows and performs the actual ceremony. So, it's all of the prep on the beginning side of it, leading up to the wedding. We create a ceremony together that, they're looking for. So it's kind of a collaborative effort between me and the couple, and sometimes
Nice.
their friends and family members that contribute. And then I perform the ceremony at the wedding, sign a marriage license for them,
Oh,
and
cool.
that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Wow. So do you do I know some like preachers or ministers or do like a counseling session with couples before they get married. Do you do any of that, or is it mostly just the arranging of everything, kind of making sure everything's set up? How does it work for you?
Sure. Yeah. So definitely some ministers on, the more religious side require premarital counseling,
Right.
all that kind of stuff. I am not qualified for anything like that. So I do have some names that I
Okay.
send to my couples if they are interested in doing anything like that. But it's really, I'm just focused on the day of the wedding,
Right.
and performing that ceremony. And if they are looking for marriage counseling or basically anything like that, that's great if they want to do it, but I am definitely not the person they should be asking for that kind of information.
Yeah, but you're the person that knows everybody down here, which is
Sure.
amazing, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's great. We have a really great community of wedding vendors in Charleston. It's very collaborative, which is really excellent. So it's less of competition between people and it's
Right.
more of raising the industry overall. So I've met a lot of really great people, and I love to be able to connect people to different organizations and individuals to help them out. So yeah, this is a great little community that we have here.
Yeah, it is great. And I've heard that same sentiment from many different people around here. So it's not, that's not unusual, which
Sure.
is a great thing. So I know everybody's got to be thinking, so what's the difference between Casey and a wedding planner? You know, uh,
Yes.
so what is
Yeah.
that?
So a wedding planner is the one that is going to do all the design for your wedding
Mm,
leading up, and they coordinate the actual day. So they figure out, say, like the color scheme that you want and the
okay.
specific plates and the chairs and basically all of the rentals, all the things that you bring into the wedding for, the cocktail hour, the reception,
Right.
making everything pretty, and also coordinating with the vendors. So what a wedding planner coordinator will do is they'll create a timeline and they'll create the vendor list, make sure all the vendors have all the information that they need for the day, and basically execute the day of the event.
Right.
My job is I come in, I arrive, half hour before the actual ceremony. I make sure I'm hooked up with the sound people, the music people, all that kind of good stuff. I perform the actual ceremony. Usually the wedding planner at that point is running around like a crazy person, making sure that everything's ready for cocktail hour. As soon as I'm done with that, as soon as I say you may now kiss the bride, they kiss and cocktails are in their hands
Wow.
shortly after that.
Wow. Amazing. That
Yeah.
sounds lots of fun. So
Yeah.
do you mainly work with do you work more with couples or do you work more with the wedding planners? Who do you work most of the time with for your business?
So I would say for large weddings, so anything by large, I would say anything like 20 people plus where they
Right.
do have a wedding planner. Most of my couples find me through other vendors. So whether
Okay.
that's a planner, a venue, a photographer, something like that, that's my first touch point with the couple. So somebody is recommending me typically.
Right.
And then I set up phone calls with the couples. We plan the ceremony, and sometimes the planner is a part of that call, but typically not.
Right.
So creating the actual wedding ceremony, the structure of it, the tone of it, all of the pieces that they want in it, that's really me and the couple working out that information. And I always, like to provide the ceremony scripts to the planners beforehand. But where I'm working with the wedding planners is for the coordination for the actual day. So making sure I'm arriving on time. They know, I know where the ceremony is going to be in the venue, making sure the sound, is what we all need, that
Right.
kind of stuff. So logistics is on me and the planners to work out, and then the actual ceremony script, all that kind of stuff is me and the couples.
That's amazing. So do you have to know a lot of different religious formalities in order to do some of the weddings? How do you manage that?
So what I give people is a ceremony script outline
Okay.
that has like basically the structure that we're going to start with. And that is based off of like a typical wedding ceremony that
Right.
is just like kind of like a modern Christian ceremony.
Right.
But then they can take it in any direction that they want. So if they want something that's not religious at all, the base script doesn't have any like overt mentions of God or religion, but it's a wedding ceremony. So
Right.
inherently, it does sound, I don't want to say religious, but it's a ceremony. And then if somebody wants to add like a Bible reading or a prayer, they can certainly do that to incorporate something like that. I've done Catholic traditions where they do like a lasso that they,
Hmm.
have around the heads of the couple, or Jewish prayers, stepping on the glass.
Oh
I've
wow.
done, yeah, pretty much anything that anybody wants. But if it is very specific, I just ask that the couple kind of like give me a little bit of direction,
Right.
and that they approve like language and all that kind of stuff, because I just want to make sure it's within their expectations. And that's a part of that like collaborative process where we add things, make sure it works for them, and that everybody's like on the same page leading up to the day.
Right. Right. And do you do a lot of what's your mix? Is it mostly like local weddings? Is it destination weddings? What is kind of where you focus the most?
I would say it's pretty 50-50.
Okay.
So it's 50-50 between destination and locals, and then also 50-50 between like elopements and larger weddings. So
Oh wow.
elopements, I mean, I say that, but like I had a ceremony a couple days ago. It was just the couple and they brought a couple friends, but like, and family members, but it wasn't like a big ordeal in terms of planning. They just picked a location, told everybody to come. And that to me still qualifies as an elopement because it's not like a ton of,
Right.
additional things that they're bringing in. So I would say, it's I would say during COVID years, so between 21 and like 23,
Right.
maybe it was a little bit more destination. But at this point, it's probably about 50-50.
That's awesome. So what do you
Yeah.
want people to know that are out there listening? It's like, if they're heading down the road toward marriage, when should they contact you? Or if there are wedding planners out there say, "Hey, we want to do a big Charleston wedding. We want this, we
Sure.
want this." When should I get a hold of Casey?
So it really depends. So I would say for peak days, so Saturdays in April and May and October, I would typically recommend, at least 6 months, sometimes a year out,
Oh, wow.
for those dates. So I have spring dates that are booked up. But the benefit that I have is I'm not at a wedding for all that long. And especially if a planner is, a part of the day, I know that that ceremony is going to start on time, because if it doesn't, you're eating into your cocktail hour.
Right.
So, everything runs on time. So I do sometimes do more than one in a day. So if
Wow.
you have like an elopement that you are flexible on the time for the ceremony, and you still want October Saturday, we could always be more flexible. I had a couple that I talked to yesterday that just decided they want to get married on Sunday. So,
Wow.
it's kind of all over the place. So it could be, I think my furthest booking out is December 2027.
Wow. Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And do you do like all the paperwork for filing at the courthouse and all that kind of stuff? How does that work for couples?
Yes. Yeah. So it's really easy in Charleston, especially for out of town people. You apply online through the
Okay.
Charleston County Court. So they make it nice and easy. You submit a couple, forms of identification. The court sends you back 3 copies of the license through email. So
Right.
you don't physically have to go there. We sign it after the ceremony. And then I physically take the judge's copies to the court. I file those with the court. And then the couple can go online and order their certified copies, and those get mailed to them. So it's
Nice.
a very easy process.
That is great. Do you do like any like renewal vows or any other
Yeah.
types of ceremonies?
Yeah, I do vow renewals a good amount of time. Yeah, it's really any type of celebration,
Oh, nice.
anytime anybody like kind of want to marks an occasion. So we get a lot of people that are visiting Charleston. Maybe they got married here, or this is like, a significant place to them, and they like to do a little vow renewal. Maybe now, they have kids and they want their kids to be a part of it. So,
Right.
we do all those. I do all those types of things, and they're all definitely fun and unique and different. So it keeps everything, interesting for me too.
Yeah. So, I have to ask you kind of a personal question. So, what brought you
Sure.
to Charleston in 2020?
Yeah. So, I was an accountant in New Jersey, New York area for 8 years. I had planned to leave accounting, in 2020 in March, was my last hurrah there, and the world shut down
Yes.
at that time. I don't know if anybody remembers. So I visited Charleston in the summer, and at the same time I went to a friend's wedding, and she had her friend officiate the wedding, and the idea just kind of like clicked.
Oh, wow.
So when I came down here, Charleston is one of the biggest destination spots for weddings in the country. So it kind of just worked. And I started reaching out to wedding planners and other vendors and things like that, just to see if there was a need for something like
Right.
a wedding officiant in town. And at the time there definitely was. So yeah, kind of just like took off like wildfire, and
That's
now
great.
now I'm happy to do this full time.
Yeah, that is really great. I'm glad that kind of worked out. It's interesting. I'm sure it was a bit of a culture shock coming from the New York, New Jersey area down to Charleston.
Yeah, it is. The heat, I'm still not used to it.
The
I
heat,
do
yeah.
not love it. We've been getting a lot of transplants here, which, some people don't love, but I like all of the people that are moving down here to open pizza shops and,
Oh yeah.
delis and stuff like that. So we've been getting a lot more, diversity in food and things like that, which is great.
Absolutely. Yeah, I lived up in the DC area and been around the world a few times, and so yeah, having greater food choices is awesome. I really enjoy that
Yeah.
part about, all the different people coming here.
Yeah, definitely.
So, speaking of food, do you, do you get involved in any of that stuff as part of the officiant? Is there anything like, like the big thing with most weddings, like, oh, the wedding cake and that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. Is that part of your stuff, or is that kind of off to the side as far as like the wedding planner and everybody?
That's usually the wedding planner. I would say if somebody is asking for recommendations for something like that, I'm happy to put my 2 cents in.
Right.
I would say for something smaller, so if it's an elopement
Yeah.
or like a mega wedding or something, and they don't have a wedding planner and they're just looking for recommendations for different things, I love to recommend out, photographers and,
Oh,
if
nice.
they need a little cake or something like that. So, I'm happy to always do that for people, but for like larger weddings, I'm
Yeah,
not
that's
really
kind of
involved in like the food and stuff like that, aside from being like, oh, I see you are using, one of my friends, and that's great. I'm glad they're getting business.
exactly, exactly. So you were telling me before we started a little bit, you're kind of expanding your business and sort of in a sense, a little bit more consulting. Tell me some more about that.
Yeah. So it kind of happened organically. So, when I first started my officiant business, I was meeting with vendors, other wedding vendors individually, which was great. But there was really no forum for everybody to kind of get together and meet. So I started hosting networking events for wedding vendors, and they turned into different types of
Mm.
events. So we did happy hours and coffee
Oh,
meetups,
nice.
and then we started organizing styled shoots, and then they kind of turned into some craziness where we do like wedding vendor like expo type things. So
Oh,
we do
wow.
like a styled shoot, yeah, like a full styled shoot during the day, which is basically like a mock wedding.
Right.
And then we open it up to the vendors in the evening. And they come, and we have anywhere between like 100 to 250
Wow.
vendors that come and see and all that kind of stuff. So that's great. And then, we do those at different venues around town. And then just organically, a venue in town, it's called the Franke Building. They
Mm.
are on Church and South Market.
Okay.
It's currently office space, and the ownership team found out about one of my events through a photographer friend of theirs, and they wanted me to host an event at their space to kind of get it off the ground,
Right.
for events there. So in chatting with them, they really didn't have anything in place for like operating like weddings or events there. So they kind of pulled me on board to create a structure where they have, pricing and
Right.
website and like basically everything that you need to start marketing to couples, start, for events. So the space is really great because it's right in smack in the middle of downtown. It's great right for like welcome parties and corporate events, socials, like things like that. So it's really it's they have an inside space which is air conditioned,
Yep. That's
which is
important.
great. So yeah, we've been trying to get that off the ground, touring a bunch of people around. So that's one side of the, what I'll say, consulting. And then I also work with Branch Flower Shop, which is in Mount Pleasant, and they, florals for weddings, events, all
Oh,
that kind of
nice.
stuff. And I do like outreach sales, that kind of stuff for them as well.
Nice. Nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is an interesting expansion because, I'm sure there are lots of places that have, building space. And sometimes they're thinking, it's like, well, how could we better utilize this space for
Yeah.
other things? And so, coming to someone like yourself who has all this experience doing weddings, knows what weddings look like, how they
Sure.
flow, how they go. That's a great way to kind of, use things in different ways.
Yeah, definitely. And it's funny because it's like the building is so centrally located downtown that people probably have passed by it so many times. But when I bring them into this space, they're like, I've never been here. I never knew about it. So it's kind of like a little hidden gem.
Right, right. Yeah, it's I've been in some older buildings in the US and other places, and like one of the things with older buildings is like every once in a while you'll find one that's like an amazing gym that has like these just gorgeous staircases. I mean, just
Yeah.
and you're just like, wow, the amount of
Yeah.
artisanship that goes into some of those staircases, like you couldn't afford to do it today.
Exactly. And things aren't built like that today. Like this building in particular, it's built in the 1800s. It manufactured carriages.
Oh, wow.
So those like arches that you see when, the old buildings that had like the carriage
Yeah.
storage or whatever.
Yeah.
That's what they have on the inside. And then there's like really pretty beams that
Yep.
are original. And like the flooring that you see on the ceiling is, the old wood flooring. And then there's like pretty skylights and stuff in there. So it's definitely a unique look for
Right.
Charleston, but it's also unique in the sense of like there's beams, so it's not just like an open white space.
Right.
So it's just, people have to want that aesthetic essentially.
Right. Yeah, it's very organic, old world
Yeah.
industrial kind of looking. I mean, if you're
Yeah.
building carriages, you've got to have a pretty sturdy structure around the thing. So I
Yes.
imagine it looks really
Exactly.
amazing.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah, it's great. It's a nice little spot. So we're hoping that it does well for people,
Yeah.
that are looking for an option downtown.
So do you see yourself kind of getting a little bit into like helping couples and wedding planners pick places also where to have weddings?
So, I mean, I'm happy to make recommendations
Hmm.
for couples. So typically when couples come to me for the officiant side of things, they already have their venue
Okay.
selected.
Right.
If it's a larger wedding, because that determines their wedding date.
Okay. Yeah.
So for those larger weddings, that's not typically on me, but for like elopements and things like that, I always recommend places for
Okay.
people. So whether that's like parks, like Hampton Park or White Point, or even like out at Magnolia or something. If
Right.
it's something smaller and maybe on their first touch point or the photographer's the first touch point, then we do make recommendations for venues. But for a larger weddings, it's usually after they already have their venue selected
Okay.
because of the date determination.
And are you mainly doing events in, I'll say, the downtown Charleston area? Or are you kind of all over the Lowcountry, Mount Pleasant, Somerville, West Ashley, wherever?
Yeah, all over really. So, we have a ton of venues in Charleston, the larger Charleston area.
Right.
I'm up in Somerville sometimes. I'm up in, Mount Pleasant, West Ashley, James Island,
Wow.
beaches, like really anywhere. Um, you know, I have done Hilton Head and like Beaufort area.
Right.
So, if somebody is looking for a date for me to travel, I'm open to that. So it's mostly concentrated in, the low country area, but there are some things that, pull me a little bit further out as well.
Right. Right. That's awesome. So I have to ask, it's like, if you had to give advice to anybody out there about, how to do what you're doing, or what you've learned from starting your business since 2020, what would you say
Sure.
to them?
Yeah, I would say just like jump in and do it. So a lot of times people have ideas and they kind of, noodle around with things for a while. And nobody, even people that have had their business for 2 or 3 years and they're
Mm.
just waiting to put that Instagram post up or waiting to
Yeah.
put that website up or whatever it is, you also have to remember nobody is tracking what you're doing on a daily basis, or so they don't really see, oh well, they just put this up and now
Right.
they changed their strategy a little bit. Like, people have to remember, like, nobody really is looking at you all too intently. So if you need to pivot, that's kind of the name of the game.
Right.
Like, you have to be adaptable, and just as when something doesn't work, take it into consideration, change courses, and just keep plowing ahead. So just start is really the recommendation.
Yeah, that's brilliant. That's really good. And that, the advice about, don't be so uh worried about people looking at you all the time, because
Yeah.
they probably aren't.
Yeah. And I know we live in this culture where everything is on your phone and
Right.
online and you feel like everybody's looking at you. But like in reality, even if somebody taps on your post and likes it, the chances that they're intently looking at it and scrutinizing everything is really, really minimal. You're just like a little blip on their day. So, hopefully you can capture people and make more connections in real life and things like that. But don't be afraid to just put yourself out there, start, and then, it could grow into something if you're consistent.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's been great talking with you today, Casey.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, and if you want to come back anytime, happy to have you on and tell me all the great things that are going on. It sounds like you're maybe doing some expansion here over this next year or so, since you're doing so well. So come back on sometime.
That'd be great. Thank you so much for chatting with me, and looking forward to connecting soon.
That's a wrap for this episode of the Lowcountry Revolutionaries. Thanks for joining us as we celebrate the fearless entrepreneurs making wave in Charleston's Chucktown Startups community. I'm Bill Bellot, and it's been an honor to share these inspiring stories with you. If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who needs a spark of Lowcountry innovation. Until next time, keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible.